What's up, guys? Caleb here from Srkcycles.com, and you are looking at a 2016 Indian Chief Vintage. Gorgeous bike, guys. Sean did the review, Indian versus Harley. Now here's what I want to do. Are you going to fit on your Indian if you are tall? Are you going to fit on a stock Indian if you are tall? Or are you going to need a spaced out seat, maybe some highway pegs, something to bring you back? Let's find out. My initial thought here as I get on the Indian is that these handlebars are awesome. They got a lot of really good pullback. It looks as though they're nice and wide. Now, one thing Indian did really well with this bike was they, if I can find my, I'm so used to Harleys. One thing Indian did really well with this bike is that it's extremely customizable without having to do anything to the stock handlebars. So the rise on these bars, you can actually flip them up and have more of an aggressive ape hanger look with the bar. At least that's what I was told at the Polaris dealership, which is actually really nice. You know, something that when you buy a Harley and you're taller, what you have to do is you have to, you know, if you want to add some ape hangers, some, you know, some mini apes to space you out, the one thing you have to do is you have to add, you know, cables, bars, all that jazz. It comes about $1,000, $1,200 when it comes to the mods. With the Indian, you can do it all from stock. So this cable, these bars, they flip right up. You got a little bit more of an aggressive look. Maybe it spaces you out a little bit better. But being a tall person, I can appreciate that after having just dropped $22,000, $23,000 on a motorcycle after taxes and tags. The last thing I want to do is put another $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 into the bars. Now, my first thought here with the gas tank is my knees are not hugging this gas tank. So the gas tank is not way too large for me. Some of the bikes that I've ridden, even some of the bikes like the Goldwing Valkyrie, my knees are touching the gas tank. It's a little bit uncomfortable. I am basically all legs, but that is one thing being tall. I don't have to worry about my knees and my legs and stuff like that all scrunched up here. Second thought, the floorboards are nice and spacious. They go a little bit beyond the pedals. You know, they have a really nice wide base to them. I really like that. You know, the Harleys do as well, but one thing Indian did well was they put nice big long floorboards on. The next thing to note, being tall, I like the idea of highway pegs. I like the idea of being able to kick back a little bit. You know, I like to use my engine guard for more than just looks. I like to use it and functionality. I like to use it with some highway pegs to kick back. So that's my next noticeable thing is I don't really need them on here because I feel nice and spacious and I'm not all cramped up touching the tank. But one thing that could use is you know, maybe some highway pegs just for comfort's sake. That is one thing that, being a taller person, if I'm not forced to get the highway pegs right away, I feel a little bit more comfortable buying it, riding it, and then figuring out what I want accessory wise in the future. Now the next thing to note on here, the seat on these bikes. First off, it's extremely comfortable. That is one thing. The seat on this bike is extremely comfortable. But some things I've noticed on the stock Harley touring seat is that I feel as though the seat pushes me up a little bit too far forward. I know that they have the actual forward seats, but even just some of the stock touring seats and even some of the stock touring seats on like the Street Glide versus like the Ultra, those seats push me up a little bit forward. It's a little bit uncomfortable for me as far as the handlebars seem to be, you know, depending on where they're positioned, the handlebars, I can be seeming to grab the handlebars a little bit closer to my knees, whereas here I'm sitting a little bit more comfortably, a little bit farther back, and my handlebars are not near my knees. That is a much more comfortable riding position, so stock right away. This Indian's a little bit more comfortable for me than some of the touring Harleys. The last thing I want to note about this Indian is that there is a lot of functionality to this bike. Being a bigger guy, some of the things that you struggle with is you don't want to hop. The most comfortable bike you can be on is the big touring bikes, to me at least. That's what I found. Some of the big touring bikes are maybe some of like the Dynas that, you know, forward controls, you're raked out a little bit long, you know, you're stretched out a little bit longer on those. One thing I want to note with this Indian is that this is a big touring bike, but it has a lot more functionality than that. What do I mean by that? What I mean is if I buy a big touring Harley, it can feel a little cumbersome, you know, being a big guy going around town, scooting in. If I just want to go to the grocery store, if I just want to go in town, sometimes, you know, I've had guys be like, you know, I just want a Dyna for around town and a touring bike for when I go on long distances. This is kind of the best of both worlds. Just like the Road King, it's got a little bit lower center of gravity. It's not as wide, it's not as big, it's not as top heavy. It feels a little bit more nimble. And honestly, even to exceed the Road King, it feels a little bit more comfortable. Like, I feel stock. I can zip around on this a little bit better. It's definitely got plenty of power, but it also feels nimble enough that I could buy one bike and this bike could serve me in a lot of different ways. You know, some guys really like the Fat Boy to do that. I don't seem to space out very well on the Fat Boy being tall. I also don't think that the Fat Boy touring wise is very comfortable for me. So the Harley that would fit me the best would be the Road King, which I think is the most comparable to this. But like I said, guys, stock, I think this bike might edge the Road King a little bit when it comes to the adjustability with the adjustable bars, being able to, you know, position everything stock with the big floorboards, and also too with a little bit comfier of a seat that doesn't seem to keep me pushed up and keep my knees pushed up to the bars, as well as the tank. I don't feel as though I'm clipping the tank with my knees. Guys, that is my personal opinion.